Well, new ways to find ways of funding funding security agencies and funding what will be addressing our security challenges. That's going to form part of the discussion we're having this morning. We have with us Honorable Sergius Ogun, who is a member Constitution Review Committee. He's representing Edo State in the committee, and he's also a member of the People's Democratic Party. And we also have with us Honorable Wale Raji, who is the Chairman House Committee on Health Service and also a member of the All Progressives Congress. Gentlemen, welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Well, insecurity has been on the front burner. The House of Representatives has been pretty concerned about the matter. You did say you're going to host a security summit, and now there is a definite date for it. Next week is what we're saying, but you know, it would seem ahead of that, you're already coming up with solutions, which is what we're now saying with this trust fund being mooted, so to speak. And then you can hear the suggestions of the military personnel. I think for a number of Nigerians, the first question will be, yes, we need to fund our military services, not just the military, the security agencies, the police, for instance, which you would seem has been relegated for a long time and have the primary duty of internal security. And perhaps all the other additional agencies we have created, such as the NSCDC, to also help in internal security matters. So yes, a trust fund might be welcome. But then there's a big issue of accountability, which the House of Representatives has tried to wade in on of recent. And it doesn't seem to have yielded satisfactory results. So how do we balance the call for more funding, even from the leadership of the House of Representatives, vis-a-vis the need for accountability? You want to go first, Honorable Ogun?
Well, once again, thank you for having me. No doubt about the fact that not just the military, the security agencies will need to be funded. But you just hit the nail on the head there. There must be accountability. Because the last time I heard somebody in the Senate was saying that when we're trying to probe funds that were released in the past, and then the senator was talking about they need more funds and there will be no need to probe. I heard in the news yesterday that they say on the average they will need $2 billion every year in the next 3 years. That maybe because of what's happening today, maybe it's money we can squeeze and bring out. Private sector funding and the government funding. Maybe we can do that so that we can have peace in this country. It's only when you have peace in this country that investors can come in. People don't see that. We're only talking about how we can move around and do bits and bits. But with the kind of news emanating from this country every day, how many investors will want to come in here and invest? And with that money from investors, I mean, largely that's where we are today. We are talking about no money to share from NNPC and all. But if you have investors coming and investing their money, they are paying tax and all that, there will be enough money in the economy. So for any money given, whether it's the military, whether it's any security agency, there must be account. They should account for every dime received. And it just doesn't end with the security agencies. Every facet of this our economy. People are so used to taking and not accounting for it. And we have become used to it. Somebody says, how much? The last budget defense we were talking about, I remember I was grilling the head of service. I think it was about 14 million. They used for foreign travels. When there's supposed to be an embargo on it, there was another 7 million. No, billion, sorry. 14 billion and 7 billion. They said for monitoring staff. I was like, give me a break. Do you drive around office to office? Yeah, because when they transfer some people, they don't move there and all that. And a colleague of mine said, please leave it. This lady has done so much for the civil service. There is just 7 billion. So we have to task people to account for every dime they get. We will get everybody to contribute. As we are today now, if you tell individuals to begin to contribute, even if it's 500 naira, so that we can fund the military, I'm sure Nigerians are ready to do that. But what happens when the money comes out? At the end of the day, you're asking people to account for it, they become a bit arrogant. So I totally agree that people must account for whatever they get.
I don't know what your thoughts are on the matter, Honorable Raji. I mean, do you support the calls for accountability, or do you think that we're stressing too much on accountability?
I mean, there is no doubt about it that in this country today, one of our major problems is misappropriation of funds, corruption generally, and in a normal society, it should be an aberration. You know, there should be accountability. There should be accountability. There is no doubt about it, and that is why I've always advocated that in fighting corruption, we must strengthen the monitoring mechanism to ensure that funds allocated are applied for the purpose for which they were appropriated in the first instance. So, but that should not stop us from doing what we have to do. That is funding our security agencies, the military and other security agencies, generally. Because the situation in this country today, I mean, is such that gives everybody concern, I was in my constituency over in the last 1 or 2 weeks. And, Youth Corps, the next batch of Youth Corps, are reporting to camps in another 1 or 2 days. Have been bombarded. Some indigenes of Lagos State posted to Katsina, posted to Sokoto. Their parents are worried, and genuinely. So, apart from my colleague spoke about foreign direct investment, even internally, moving from state to state, it used to be a thing of pleasure, adventure for us to move around to other states. I know some of my friends that they derive pleasure in traveling by road from Abuja to Lagos. But today, traveling from here to Abaji, you have to, make adequate preparation to ensure your security. So there is general there is general insecurity in the country, and we need to address it. We cannot develop, even internal investors, local investors cannot invest, where there is this general insecurity. So I totally support the idea that there must be accountability. There is no option. In fact, to do otherwise, is to do the abnormal.
So I think that for a number of people, the question will be how the House is going to take on board that need for accountability alongside the call for increased funding. Because we can see, from what we have seen, I think it was the House of Reps, the committee, I can't remember which one of the committees, now whether on Army or so, that invited the Chief of Army Staff. Yeah. And the encounter was on live television. Eventually, media was asked to excuse the committee when we could see just how heated up things were about to get. So when you see that is the kind of reaction you get when calls for accountability are made, what other actions are you taking to strengthen the arm of the House, by extension the National Assembly as well, to be able to get accountability alongside increased calls for funding or calls for increased funding? Do you think that, do you think that anything extra can be done apart from what has already been done? No,
my own view is that we should be resolute in our determination to ensure that our oversight function are performed without fear or favor, and with that sense of patriotism that we are doing it for our country. And also, I know that the Committee on Public Accounts has been doing a good job in that regard, and I'm sure that what you saw on the television with respect to the Committee on Army or what have you, naturally, when you take people on on such matters. They attempt to intimidate or blackmail, but we will not succumb to such blackmail. And I'm sure that the leadership of the National Assembly, and particularly the House of Representatives, is ready to back any committee that is embarking on such oversight.
Maybe there'll be ways for us to entrench transparency, because I'm sure, excuse me, in the mind of the average Nigerians, where you see news that former service chiefs have been arrested or are being probed for humongous sums of money, and at the same time you continue to see that the military is underfunded, or we need to increase funding. I'm sure they're asking, how can we reconcile these two? If at the end of the day, or how do we ensure, how do we know that the monies that are being provided for is really going towards this war? I mean, we've seen all sorts of scandalous stories of our military men deserting the war front, or complaining of not having the right equipment or not getting their pay as and when due. There's some stories that we shouldn't hear of our military.
I think it's our attitude to government money, government funding. The section 30 and 50 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007 clearly states how there should be reporting on money disbursed quarterly, but who's really following that? In the private sector, they follow the money. Why should we not follow the money in government? I know of one of the IOCs. They sent a lady to head the place. She came from France, so it looks like I'm almost giving away the identity of the company now. She came and cleaned up the place. How did she do that? She discovered that most of the contractors were the staff. People working in the company became the contractors. And in their rule book is a conflict of interest to even take a gift from a contractor. But you now became the contractor, contracting for yourself, so to speak. How did she get that? Went to CAC, got the names of the companies working for them, and checked. The people were even so bold. There are some of them, their names, their children, wives were on there. And she cleaned up the whole place. You either leave, or you resign, or you are sacked. And she sacked most of them. But at the end of the day, they protested. She had to leave the country. But she cleaned up the whole place. But we don't do that in government. Like the private sector, nobody invests their money, and then they allow people to sit down there and embezzle the money. Yeah, you can steal money for a while, but they have a self-cleansing system because it was set up to make profit. But in the government sector, you don't have that. So I think, now I'm preaching to myself. We're preaching to ourselves. We need to do that more. But the challenge is when you start grilling these people, there's this conclusion from general public that, what is it? But
I mean, that's the thing. So is there a way we can make it routine in such a way that this is not about, we now believe that money has been stolen. This is about what needs to be done. It's like accountability. What needs to be done on a quarterly basis? What needs to be done on a yearly basis, whereby maybe military chiefs have to give an account, or whereby, there is, however monies are spent, there is a place where you can easily go to source the information, and maybe the only time we see them come around is I mean, you can source the information. I don't just mean members of the House of Reps. I mean, any Nigerian can get the information when needed. And so much so that the only time when we see them, perhaps at the House or the Senate, is when there is any discrepancy noted. I don't know if any, there are any suggestions towards that end.
I think fighting corruption generally, it is not only for the government. We, Nigerians ourselves, I think we have a role to play. Now, these people who steal from government.
Let's leave out the role of the ordinary Nigerians, because there are government agencies that have been saddled with that responsibility.
Yes.
Nigerians have given them that, responsibility to carry out on behalf of them.
No, you see, look, just like I said earlier.
On their behalf.
Just like I said earlier, on the part of the National Assembly, we are saddled with the responsibility of oversight. And we will continue, we will strengthen that and ensure that we continue to exercise our oversight function I mean, part of the oversight is the annual review of the Auditor General's report by the Committee on Public Accounts. And if you have been following the activities of that committee, a lot of revelations, have been made and reported, to the appropriate quarters. But I think I agree with you. We still need to do more, and I'm sure that we need to rededicate ourselves to ensuring that we follow up on this and ensure that strict accountability, money appropriated, is used for the purpose for which it is appropriated.
Well, let's talk about, let's talk about the matters which are on the front. I mean, we're still talking about insecurity. I mean, insecurity, whether or not we like it, is very, very related to accountability. But in recent times, we have seen a number of meetings and declarations to boot. Last week, we saw that of the southern governors. And I was just saying, just before we came on this show, that I think a lot of you are going to be hamstrung, even though you belong to different parties. But it was beyond parties.
Yeah, it was.
The meeting we saw of southern governors was beyond parties. And for a number of people, they said that they felt that sent a pretty strong signal, even though, the northern governors meet all the time, and it doesn't look like that raises a lot of eyebrows. And when southern governors meet, it looks like something extraordinary had happened. And we have to agree, because it doesn't happen all the time, even though they claim that, this is not strange, we do. But their message was clear. They came out with a 10-point agenda.
That's right.
Asking the president to do a number of things. The message was directly to the president. And then as if to say this is something that we're also feeling across the aisle. We saw something yesterday, PDP governors meeting and coming up with their own points as well. You were a member of the House Committee on Constitution Amendment. I do not know whether you're taking note of these meetings and how you think that they're going to be factoring it into the amendment that's going to take place as we progress in this in the Ninth Assembly.
Yeah, but I think the governors did not come together, the southern governors and even the PDP governors, out of the fact that they didn't have anything to do. They are the CEOs of the various states. They are going through all this enormous pressure in their states, and they have to deliver. They have to protect their people. So when one or two people criticize them for taking the stand that they took, and I said my answer to such people is, you don't know what it is to be head of your family, maybe. But you cannot sit down at home and your wife and children will be raped. And that's what's happening largely everywhere in the country. Some of the things they raised are already in our purview. If there's a notice, the Senate will be going around the country, the 6 geopolitical zones next week.
Yeah.
And conducting public hearing of the committee. The House will do theirs maybe first week in June. So most of those things are already there. I think whatever they did in Asaba and in Ibadan yesterday is just to further make it a national discourse and bring to the front burners. They will be discussed, and I'm sure that will put some pressure on the National Assembly this time around, because the general view or opinion of the people is that the constitutional review will not amount to anything. So, but now that the governments are holding on to the positions, especially through federalism, devolution of power, and all that, they already, if you look at the list of items to be discussed by the senators in the public hearing, those are like items 2, 3, 4, or even 5. So they will be discussed thoroughly, and my advice will be to the people to come out in the states that will be visited, to come out and also express this so that we can take them on board. So when we come back to Abuja and we clean up whatever has been discussed, we don't forget those things in a hurry. Although we also know that the governors still have a huge role to play, because whatever we do here will go back to the states, the state assemblies, and then hopefully, I'm sure this time around we'll get it right.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, on the meetings that have happened so far?
Well, I think, to me, I want to comment them. There was nothing unusual about it. And one thing that is heartwarming, the first point in their something was to express their commitment to the unity of this country. And that's it's an indication that it wasn't a gang up against any section of the country. And the fact that it was not a partisan thing, all the parties, all the states, were represented. And so I will comment them. And what were the items, what are the issues that they discussed? The resolution, the calling for state police, that has always been there. And is part of what the Constitutional Review Committee of the the committees of the National Assembly, both at the Senate and the House of Reps, part of the items being looked into. We're also talking about restructuring. Well, that's an issue that has become a sing-song in the country. But I know that everybody is concerned about the fact that the exclusive legislative list in the Constitution is too loaded. We need to devolve powers to the states, to really reflect true federalism. And they also spoke about fiscal federalism. Although they were requesting for a review of the revenue allocation to put more money at the state level. But rather, I would rather say that rather we're limiting ourselves to reviewing the revenue allocation. I think that we should amend the Constitution such that the states, each state, will have control over its resources, and pay royalty or taxes to the federal government. Because the Apapa gridlock is one of the issues they mentioned. Revenue is generated from the operation of the ports. Lagos State bears the brunt of the operations at the port, but the money goes to Abuja. These are some of the things that we need to really look into. And some of the things this issue, you recall that APC proactively at the beginning of this administration constituted the El-Rufai committee. Now, I think there are about 10 items.
Honorable, I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts because, there are huge questions as to what happened to that committee report. And it's very interesting that Honorable Ogun says that, a lot of people already said that nothing is going to come out of it. I'm glad that you're already getting such feedback and you'll, be explaining how you intend to, prove the naysayers wrong when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Honorable Sir Just Ogun, member Constitution Review Committee, and Honorable Wale Raji, who is the chairman House Committee on House Service, they're still with us here in the studio. Gentlemen, first and foremost, I'd like to, continue with you, Honorable Ogun, when you talk about the fact that people already think that nothing much will come out of this Constitution Review. In fact, there are those who say that for us to be able to make progress, the changes that we need to make need to be done outside of the National Assembly. And perhaps they have good reason to say so, because it's not the first time we are doing Constitution Review, but it would seem that very little in terms of significant change has come by the way of a Constitution Review committees. Yeah,
I think the challenge has been, after all this process, Either the president will not assent to it or something. I think that has been the challenge. But a lot of water has gone under the bridge since the last one. I strongly believe this time around something will happen.
Why do you believe that? What are the signs you see that you think will make it significantly different this time around?
We are no longer where we used to be. So the Bible says the wicked runneth when no man pursueth. When we were growing up, we used to have dwarf fence. But these days, you even need a 100-foot ladder to climb most fences. So what am I saying? The security situation has so deteriorated in this country now that is not an issue of let's leave this to the National Assembly. Yeah, Section 9(1) of the Constitution gives the National Assembly powers to review the Constitution and amend it. We would do that. I agree a lot will come from our side. That's what the governors are doing that. If you look now, we have so many, like even the Delta State governor was a senator. The Bayelsa State governor also was a senator. So they know the workings of the National Assembly. So whatever they are doing now, they're going to push to the National Assembly and then begin to talk to us to do something about it. While they're also talking to their colleagues to work with their state houses of assembly to do something about it. But the important thing here is, whatever is coming from our side, like my brother here just mentioned, the APC committee, the Constitutional Review Committee of True Federation Committee, sent a report in 2018 before the 2019 election. And most of the things we are agitating for here today, most of the things said by the southern governors, were all there. True federalism, devolution of power, state police, all those things were there.
They have been there for a very long time.
But this is even the recommendation by the committee set up by the party, headed by a governor, Governor El-Rufai, and it was sent to the government. The same government that set it up, they sent it to them. It was there before the 2019 election, and nothing's been done about it. I would have thought, maybe after the election was done and dusted, we'll come back. That would be the first thing they will attack, maybe 2019. Nothing has happened. So some of those things are even in the Constitutional Review right now. So I will assume that this is the time for Nigerians to task them, to tell the APC, if you are serious with this recommendation, make sure all the APC states support this. Because it's not enough for us to come to the floor of the House that day to vote, because it's electronic voting, so we should know how people from the states voted. And I will urge the leadership of the National Assembly to show our vote to the whole world. So I will know clearly how people voted.
Yes. Well, I think the situation today is different from the past. And everybody is worried. There is general insecurity. There is, economic hardship in the land. And we have come to a stage that disintegration is staring us in the face, and everybody is concerned. So the attitude towards the Constitutional Review this time around, I think, has changed. And one thing that came out of the...
You're feeling it? You're feeling the changes?
Everybody. Everybody, including you. Does anybody feel safe in this country today?
It's not the safety I'm talking about.
No, that is the fact that there is general insecurity.
The attitude to constitution amendments, or the attitude to the changes that have to be made.
It will force everybody. It will force everybody, to be committed to doing something that will change the situation. And one thing that the governor said, I don't know if it was properly captured by the press, was that they were going to engage their representatives in the National Assembly, to ensure that we are all on the same page with respect to their recommendations. And let me state this: I'm aware that there is a move, in that regard. Very soon, you'll start seeing engagement, by some of the governors with the members of the National Assembly. I can tell you that. I mean, something is coming up very soon, within the next few days.
Okay, let's flip this to Lagos now for questions from my colleagues. Gentlemen.
Well, yeah, Honorable Ogun, let me ask you, I mean, some of the points you made, part of which was that we needed to know how members in the National Assembly vote. This was part of the, perhaps some thought it was part of the reasons why it fell through the last time that this subject matter about devolution of power and state police came through, and then the Assembly said they were going to represent it, but today we know that that hasn't happened. How do we ensure, how do you or the leadership in the National Assembly ensure that anyone who votes for any particular item, their constituencies or Nigerians know what direction that is going to take?
Yes,
okay, thank you, Chambali. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Is electronic voting. So when we vote, it's on record. You know how we vote. So well, my take is, I think the last time we did that in the 8th Assembly, it was the day we were going to vote that we met. The speaker today was the majority leader then. That was the day we met. But we're going to do that differently now. And so we're going to be meeting. Like when the Southern governors took a position the last time, and certain people were trying to rebuke them, so to speak, the National Assembly, the senators came out to say, look, we endorse that fully. And then the House members also came out in the South, from the South, said, we endorse that. And that's a repudiation of whoever was trying to raise his head, talking about the Senate president. So we are going to be engaging, we're going to be talking, like my colleague said. And when we go there, we're going to vote, and they will know, Nigerians will know clearly how we voted. That's why I was saying there's hypocrisy in all this. In the 8th Assembly, there were so many things the APC claimed supposedly that they were in support of. But when we voted, they voted against those things. So this time, I will urge the leadership of the National Assembly to let the world know how we voted. So maybe when that happens, nobody comes out to blame any part of the country for what happened or what didn't happen. But I strongly believe that, I think even the northern state governors have taken a position on some of these issues. And the earlier we begin to address them, the better. And now, there is no more revenue to share as such. Whatever is happening in Kaduna today is just a matter of time. Even this year, it will happen around the country. The governors don't have money to pay anymore. So the earlier they begin to look inward to generate money to take care of their people, the better. And it's only a fool that will not know that you need to prepare for tomorrow.
Well, let me bring in Honorable Raji. But we're hoping that at least the National Assembly will let the public know. It won't be a bad idea to publish how people vote, so people need to know. But Honorable Raji, the comments of the President of the Senate about the meeting of the Southern governors calling for devolution of power, restructuring, ban and open grazing, it comes across as though he's opposing some of those, asking that there be restructuring in their states first, as though they were paying lip service to the entire thing. How does that come across to you, especially when people think that, wait a minute, isn't that comment already rallying those who will oppose that when it comes to the National Assembly for debate?
Thank you, Chamberlain. The comment of, or the reaction of the Senate President to the resolutions of the Southern governors was his personal opinion, and which he is entitled to. But the Southern Senators Forum, they have expressed the collective position of the Southern senators. Ditto, the House of Reps from the South have also expressed their own position on the issue, and I think everybody is in agreement, with the resolutions of the the southern governors. But let me also say, probably what's without necessarily endorsing all that he said, he probably was advising that some of these things like marginalization and all what have you, that there are some areas in the, that also affect the states, that, reflection of the, federal character in appointments and all what have you. So, there are one or two things that the states can also do to ensure that in their own states, they ensure that they reflect the diversity in their various states. And also probably in the issue of revenue generation, they need to also, there are one or two things that they can also do, to improve revenue generation in their states. So, but, however, the Senate President expressed his personal opinion, and which he is entitled to.
Well, Honorable Ogun, let me ask you this. You've spoken largely about so many things this morning, but the one that interests me and it really does concern me is something about the local government administration. Not a few people have complained about how governors are currently handling that, and the propositions that have been made to make the funds first line charge and all of that, and how that rather than the state houses of assembly taking charge concerning local government administration, it is the executive in the states that we see that seem to be more frontal about it. Many of them have, if not all of them, have ministries in charge of local government administration. And one wonders, how is this likely to play out, when we begin these conversations across Nigeria about constitution review?
Well, there has been a lot of motions on that on the floor of the House. But if I go back to the APC True Federalism recommendation, they stated there clearly that the local government should be the baby of the state government because they will be in a better position to plan and manage them. And I am in agreement to a large extent. When people concern themselves with how the state will run, it shouldn't be an issue at all. Like I mentioned earlier, if we know how much the state is generating, from the state we will follow the money. But the challenge has been the center. There's too much power in the center. Like the Senate president that's from Yobe, when he's talking the state governors should go and restructure their states, how will he know that my governor in Edo State is not restructuring the state? That's what's going on right now in Edo State. Maybe to some extent in Lagos State. How will he know? Why is that his business? You are the Senate president and the so-called number 3 person in the country. So you are in Abuja. Abuja is big. The money comes to Abuja. You don't know what is happening in my village, Uboha. You are in Abuja here planning for my village. So the states are in a better position to manage the local governments. The fear that the state will not manage it well is neither here nor there. Because we, those from the states, are able to task the governor. In the last election, the governor of Edo State went around to every ward. I mean every ward in the state. And he took notes of what they want him to do in his second term. So why would you tell such a man that you have a local government chairman or you have councillors that will not know what they are doing? And he will sit down. We will not even allow him to do that. So I think for once we should allow like I said, it's even in the recommendation by the APC. And I expect that they will bring that as a party to the Constitutional Review Committee to say, look, this is what we want for our country. And then we'll drive it from there. And like the answer to Chamberlain earlier, this will also show our votes. We're going to vote, but after that vote, let the world know how the parties voted, how the individuals voted, how the constituents were represented through this vote.
Honorable,
So I do not have any
are you
fear about
saying,
having local government to run.
yeah, are you saying in effect that are you suggesting that the local government tier of the federation be removed? That we should only have a 2-tier federation as opposed to a 3-tier federation?
Not at all. The local government should remain, but should be managed by the states. Even that's what is happening right now. I'm sure my colleague is going to speak about what's happening in Lagos. But that's what's happening right now. Like you mentioned something about having the states having local government, commissioner for local government and all. It's just for monitoring. Because people have said in the past that don't give too much money to local government. They will just waste the money. That's not correct. If I know my local government chairman gets subvention or money from the federal government, gets 100 million every month, I will ask questions. I will ask questions because the last time, I can even tell you 2 months ago, or 3 months ago, yeah, about 2 months ago, when we met with our governor, that was when they mentioned the issue of printing money. He was actually speaking to stakeholders in the state to say, look, this is where we are with revenue in the state, and even coming from federal. So we need to look inward, you know. And part of what he said about the local government not even performing and how they have trained the I think before the local government chairman left, that was a training for them. So when I left that meeting, I ran into my former local government chairman, and I asked him. The governor said that he doesn't take money that comes to the local government. Is that true? And he said to me, yeah, it's true. But I said, how come people were not working? He said the revenue that was not coming compared to the people there before them, the predecessors, was more. Now they're getting little or nothing. You know? So we will follow the money. So the issue of the local government chairman getting money and spending it on themselves will not arise here. If we know how much money is going to the local government, everybody will show interest. If not everybody, at least the local government, the leaders in local government will show interest. We will task them to perform. So it's not enough to say that, no, don't allow the state to have control over the local government because they will mismanage it. Okay, but in the federal right now, they are mismanaging everything. And what are we doing about it?
All right, Honorable Raji, I don't know, you may want to add to that one as well, but the question I would like to ask you is about this whole devolution of powers thing, or especially talking about restructuring the list, the concurrent list, the executive list, and the rest of them. And quite a number of things are listed in that, even from the APC True Federalism review that was done and submitted in 2018 that Honorable Ogun mentioned the other time. One wonders if it has taken this long, to even give a thought to the resolution of the APC in government. What are the hopes then for this exercise that we are embarking on this constitution review?
Thank you very much, Ayo. Now, first to react to the comment of my colleague. In the 8th Assembly, we were both in the 8th Assembly, and the voting, that was the first time we tried the electronic voting. And I think that when we were debating the recommendations of the Constitutional Review Committee of the 8th Assembly, there was an attempt to use the electronic voting system, but we ran into a hitch with it. But definitely this time around, I think there's going to be a change. Now, on the issue of the local government, I also need to comment on that. I believe that if you want to run a federal system of government, let's run a true federalism. There are, under a federal system of government, there are the states are the federating units. So I think it's an aberration, for funds to be allocated to states. To local governments, in the federal system of government. So the local government administration should be the responsibility of the states. The creation and finances and management of local governments should be the something. So that each state can create local government based on the peculiarities of such state. So that's my take on that. You know, and as for the recommendations of, devolution of power, yes, don't let us, my friend was talking about the recommendation, APC recommendation not being implemented and all what have you. Those recommendations, they came close to the 2019 election, and the recommendations, the report has since been, they've worked on the report. In fact, there are some draft bills, you know, by the committee, and I'm sure all these will be passed to the Constitutional Review Committee. You know, so talking about devolution of powers and all what have you, you know, the state police, there's nothing the governors, the southern governors, or any other group of people have spoken about, you know, on the Constitutional Review that have not been taken care of.
Honorable Wale, let me just drop this.
But
just a few more items before I bring in Honorable Logun. Let me ask you, you made reference to the Apapa gridlock, the port operation, and how Lagos is bearing the brunt at the moment. What is your impression? Because both, in fact, even the recent confab that they had, the option or the question of resource control appears to be the Achilles heel almost all the time. What's your impression of what needs to be done about that when this competition starts?
My own position is there must be fiscal federalism that will allow states to control resources, you know, within the state, and whatever revenue, whatever taxes or so that will be paid to the federal, let it be paid to the federal. For instance, the Apapa port, the operation of the port, for instance, you know, Lagos State should be allowed to run, to administer the port.
Okay.
Lagos State should be allowed to administer the port, you know, collect the revenue coming from such operations and pay taxes to the federal.
All right, let me bring in Honorable Ogun. I know we need to run. When this starts, this review committee, looking at the schedule, how it plans to go around different geopolitical zones in the country, and the impression I get from everyone appears as though we need to hit the ground running. How long is this going to take? Are we going to see this concluded before the 2023 elections? We know that end of this year, next year, election will kick in. Election preparations and all those proceedings will kick in.
Yeah, in our last meeting, the chairman of the House, who is the deputy speaker, that of the House of Rep, on the ad hoc committee on constitutional review, said clearly that is our hope and belief that it will be sent to the president before the end of the year. That's why we're embarking on this now. The Senate will go out next week. The week after, the House of Rep will go out around the 6 geopolitical zones. And we strongly believe that by the time we come back, hopefully maybe we'll proceed on our annual recess, and as we come back, it will be ready. It will be ready to be transmitted to the president. So it should not be for Nigerians to pressure the president to assent to it. But I also think the southern governors and the PDP governors are coming out in good time to put this in our conscience, you know, so that we'll begin to talk about it. The National Assembly members are aware, the constituents are aware, and if we all begin to discuss this, and we agreed now that the world should know how we vote on it, so that nobody comes back to say, okay, well, we believe in this. You are saying one thing and doing another thing entirely. we need to drop that. So I believe that, we strongly believe that this time around, something good will come out of it. Like my colleague here said, a whole lot has happened lately. Yeah. And it's not the Nigeria of 8th Assembly that we have today.
That's right.
It's not even Nigeria of last year that we have today.
That's right.
You know, he can attest to the fact that our phone are switched off now, but by the time you turn it on, you probably have received how many text messages from people needing help here and there. It's always been like that, but in the last few months, it's been something else. So if you don't do something, we might just not even have a nation anymore.
Well, I'm sure eventually we'll see what eventually will come out of it. Only time can tell that whether things have changed enough for us to see significant changes. But when you say that the governor should be left alone to manage the state, and when you look at the elections and the kind of results we see for local government elections, there will be huge question marks as to whether or not the governors too have also come to equity with clean hands. So, but let us see how the conversation eventually proceeds. I know it's going to be on for a while, but we have to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on Sunrise Today this morning. Honorable Sergius Ogun is a member, Constitution Review Committee. He's representing Edo State on that committee, and is also a member of the PDP. And we also had Honorable Wale Raji with us, who's the Chairman House Committee on House Service and a member of the All Progressives Congress.
From Ekpe, Lagos State.
He has to emphasize that, yes, he's representing Lagos as well. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Today this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this segment. We'll be back shortly. Please stay with us. Well, yes, our next conversation is going to talk on improving national security, but you're going to make some pretty interesting findings on this particular segment. We're not being joined by Mr. Jonah Bauer, who is the Director General of the Citizenship and Leadership Training Center. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you, my sister.
Now, for a number of people who do not know that this is a government institution, Citizenship and Leadership Training Center. Why do you think, first and foremost, we need such a center? Just wondering.
Yes, let me, good morning, Nigerians. Let me go back a bit to history, how the center came into being. Now, in 1951, the colonial administration set up this center as Man-O Training Bay in Victoria, Southern Cameroon. 1960, when we got independence, the center was relocated because that part of Nigeria was ceded to Cameroon. So it was relocated to Kura Falls in Jos in 1960. And the then Prime Minister, Tafawa Balewa, christened the name to Citizenship and Leadership Training Center. And there was an act that backed it up. Now, the history of the center, when there was agitation for independence, the colonial administration discovered that there was deficiency in people that will man the administration when independence was gotten. So this center was established to train people, build the capacity of people, Nigerians, and other people from other West African countries so that they can take over the administration from the colonial masters. That is why the center was established. And the mandate of the center is to help mold the characters of Nigerians to be good citizens and responsible leaders. We are a parastatal under Federal Ministry of Youth and Sport Development.
It is interesting how you have been there for since pre-colonial, since pre-independence era, I mean, since the colonial times. And now, I mean, this is 2021, you're still there.
Yeah.
I'm wondering where we currently are as a people. Oftentimes when we want to talk about attitudes, behaviors, even when with regards to security, even when the security agencies are telling us that, you know, we all should be involved in this security business, we all have a duty towards our country. I mean, your center should have been at the forefront, one of those at the forefront in educating people in terms of how to behave as citizens. Is that correct?
Yes, just like I said earlier on, Citizenship and Leadership Training Center is a training that help people to discover themselves.
So in that regard, what impact can you say you have had for the time of your existence, if we are currently where we are and we have a center like yours?
Yes, know that we have not been doing a lot. We have been doing a lot because people are coming, and they have been coming. And just like I said, the center focuses on helping people to be good citizens and responsible leaders. Our training is adventure-based. We expose participants to some challenges in the environment, and then at the end of it, we bring out some virtues that will help them to be good citizens and responsible leaders. And these virtues include integrity, selfless service, courage, which is resilience, self-control, community service, and then volunteerism. All these are things that we teach people. And because it's a self-discovery, we help people to discover themselves. Things that ordinarily you think you cannot do, by the time you pass through us, you come out with those virtues. We deal with ethical issues. And you know, ethical issues are the foundation of every society.
Yeah, so that's a big question. That's the irony. I mean, this is where we are today. We're talking about insecurity. It's a huge problem. I mean, when you look at where we currently are, the indices oftentimes are not very good. Economically speaking, security-wise, you know, there is a lot of agitation from the submissions of the gentlemen who were here just before you came in. I mean, one of the reasons why we're talking about constitutional changes, we're talking about, you know, the meetings that governors have been having in recent times is because it looks like there is fire on the mountain and something needs to be urgently done. Would you say that, you know, that we have really received the impact, you know, that could have accrued to us from centers like yours? Or do you think that centers like yours need to be replicated across the country for us to be able to feel such an impact?
That is one. But the other issue is, when we started, Nigerian population may not be up to 15, maybe between 15 to 20 million. Now we are about over 200 million. And you know that, like my center, we used to have just about 8 training schools. Now we have about 11. And if you look at the capacity, we cannot meet up. There is an adage in Hausa that says, when the meat is so much, small oil cannot have any impact on that meat. And that is exactly what we are saying. But that is not to say that we cannot do anything. Now we are talking about good citizenship and responsible leadership. The strength or weakness of every community or nation depend on the characters of the people you have in the society. Now we are talking about issue of insecurity. We have to talk about how do we become good? We have to go back to the basis. The basic things, the foundation of every society that is there, this that has to do with the ethical issues, the Nigerian core values that we set aside, we have to bring it back. That's why we are working on issue of bringing citizenship education in the country. Because once you have that citizenship education, people will be enlightened. They will know what they are supposed to do.
And the citizenship education would not be within the 4 walls of classrooms. I mean, yes, of course, it'll be good if they're introduced in classrooms. But when you look at the fact that we have a lot of people who are not in schools, a lot of people who are not educated, how do you intend to get this message across?
And that is the more reason why, you know, our training is not the conventional education. It's an informal training that we have. It's outside the classroom. What we teach cannot be taught in the school, conventional school. But when people come, our training is short, but intensive training that we do. Within short time, people's mindset, the value orientation will change. So that is what we do. And by the time we are calling upon people to sponsor people, because we are a social service organization. But we need people who can sponsor people to bring them in. Like we are saying now, we have constituencies. If people that represent the constituency can bring a reasonable number of people, particularly the youth, for training, I'm telling you, they will change a lot of things.
It is interesting. I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that you have been there before, you know, in Nigeria's independence. Your center has been there before Nigeria's independence. And I know that speaking with you behind the scenes, you know.
And let me even surprise you.
Yes.
For the past 2 years, the UNDP brought civilian JTF. You know civilian JTF?
Yes.
We trained 5,000 of them. And the training is ongoing. The ex-militants from Rivers State came and trained with us. And by the time
from the Niger Delta?
Yes, they came. By the time they passed through us, they are already reformed. That's why we are calling on all the governors to bring their people, the political talks, the NKRA in Gombe, we reform them. So the ex-militants, ex-Qualtic members should come to us. We train them. And they will never be the same. The drugs addicts, we all do those training.
So are you in partnerships? I mean, it's interesting to note that you were involved in the setting up of the NYSC. And I think before now we used to hear of the Mano War. Yes. We also know that, you know, a part of the requirements of the Nigerian army is that if they do not go to the NDA, sorry, to your center, they might not be able to graduate and become the soldiers that they are today. However, I mean, is there a way that this can be expanded in such a way that it takes more people on board? Or do you think that your center can evolve? When we look at the security challenges that we're facing today, and the fact that it's because we have a lot of people unemployed. I mean, there's a huge unemployment market, and generally ethics, because you talked about that, has now collapsed in such a way that a lot of people are seeing more benefit in crime and criminality than in doing good. I don't know if you see a role for your center in terms of how we should evolve to cater to the needs of what the country is facing today.
Let me also shock you, because you seem not to know much about us. UNDP can never do any empowerment program without bringing the participants for us to prepare them for 2 weeks, prepare the mindset.
United Nations Development Program?
Any empowerment they are doing, they involve us. We prepare the participants so that by the end of 2 weeks, those participants will now be ready for the training, for the empowerment that you have.
Yeah, but when you look at...
I'm coming. If you don't prepare all these participants, we have empowerments going on here and there. But you can see, you will tell me that the impact is not so much felt, because the participants were not fully prepared for that empowerment.
You have to admit that the impact has not been felt.
So some of them can even sell whatever you empower them with at the gate of the empowerment venue. Why? Because they have not been prepared. The mindset has not been changed. And that is what we do. We prepare these people. We prepare the youth to do what is right. And once that preparation is done, I'm telling you, there will be different people. You can imagine the tough political talks that we have that have been reformed, and they are contributing to the community where they are living. The same thing with the ex-militant that passed through us. You can never pass through us without having some experience that you will tell people in the future. If you interview any of our course participants that attended our program 50 or 60 years ago, he will always recall the experience he had with us. Even you that passed through NYSC, I'm sure you can still recall some of the thing you learned in the course of your experience in that place. Now, what we do is, the concept of our training is what we brought into the NYSC. Bring people from different backgrounds, put them together to do activities as a group. And after some time, they will forget their differences, and they will start working together as one. And that is what this nation needs.
When you think of the fact that programs like the NYSC now are being threatened, I mean, one of the honorables just left here and he says that, you know, he's received a lot of concerns by parents now in the light of recent postings by the NYSC. Laudable as the ideals of that program is now being threatened. I mean, when you say, oh, someone from Delta should go to Sokoto, for instance, the first thing that the parent of that person feels, even the individual himself or herself, is apprehension. How am I going to get there? Is it safe for my child to be there? You know, these are questions that people feel, even from north to south, from south to north. These are some of the apprehensions that people feel. When you look at the fact that, you know, such a program is being threatened by the state of security we have in the country today, what difference do you think that programs like yours can make to, first of all, bring down the current security challenges that we're facing in such a way that these laudable programs can continue?
Yeah, first of all, we have to work on the people. I told you initially that the strength or weakness of every community or country depends on the character of people that you have in that society or that country. So the issue now is, let's start working on the citizens. We have three kinds of citizens: the good citizens, the good ones that are always striving, they're always working towards making the country be good. We have the bad ones. I don't have to go into details, you know them. We have the passive ones that are in the majority. We have to work on the citizens. Once we work and get more of good people in the country, then definitely all the things you are talking about will change. And how do we do that? We start as individuals. We have to be positive. We have to love our country. Issue of nationalism coming in now. If I have anything to say, let me be constructive in my criticisms. And let's be positive about this country. You see, this is the only country we have. You can never have any country behind this. Wherever you go, you are still a second citizen there. So we have to work on our countries to make it good.
Let's flip this to Lagos now. My colleagues have questions.
Yeah, you know, when you keep talking about training citizens to be good citizens, several things come to mind. First of all, what do you even tell them? What kind of message or training? What's the national ethos? Is there anything that you put across to them, say, look, this is what makes you a Nigerian, or this is the ethics or the ethos, you know, with which you need to be known? What's the message in that regard?
Yeah, actually, if you look at the nature of our training, I said it's adventure-based. And why we are unique is because what we do is different from the conventional training that we have. Most of the things we teach, most of the virtues we teach in our training school, when we talk about integrity, we always practicalize it in the course of the training. When we talk of teamwork, we practicalize it. When we talk of selfless service, we practicalize it. When we talk of community service, in the course of your stay with us, everything that we do, we practicalize it. So that by the time you leave that place, your mindset has already changed, because we help people, we do character development, value orientation, character development. By the time you expose you to all the kind of training we have, you live a different person. It's not a conventional lecture that you come and listen to people giving you lecture. No, it's practical in nature. So all these virtues, values that I mentioned are the values that we practically teach them in the course of the training. If you spend 2 weeks with us, by the time you leave with an experience. So that is why we said, if you look at the theme, we are celebrating 70 years. The theme of our celebration is optimizing the unique values of citizenship and leadership training for better Nigeria. So once you...
Just one second, if you can hear me.
Imbibe those virtues that you learn from us.
It's
You
the
definitely be a
leadership
different
part
person.
that I'm a little more interested in, if you don't mind me butting in. It's the leadership part. I mean, you've talked extensively about the citizenship part. It's the leadership part that I'm interested in. I'm just wondering, can you reference anyone in leadership in Nigeria over the past almost 70 years, as you have said, that's risen to leadership position in the country? 70 years, and you've, according to your website, trained something in the region of 7 million people. Can you reference anyone in leadership in Nigeria that has passed through your system?
I don't want to mention specific people, but we are going to,
Why not? Are you embarrassed by that?
Not embarrassed. We have them already on Thursday. When we are going to have the date, we are going to list the prominent Nigerians that passed through us.
Yes, but I mean, I'm sure Ayo has a reason for that.
What I'm telling you, we have them. I said you cannot graduate from NDA or police academy without passing through us. The security service, other security service, the DSS, the SS, they all pass through us. So I don't want to be specific, but you should know from my statement that, yes, there are some in the 50s and 60s, there are some emirs in this nation and other prominent people that passed through us. Some of them attended program in 1960s, 1950s, and 70s, early 70s. They all
Just one more thing. Just one more thing
So,
from me here.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that we'll be able to see them, just as you have said, just see how many of them have risen to, top positions in federal or state governments all over the country. But then I'm also wondering, for those who may be interested in this system and hoping to rise to leadership, especially as we build up to a stronger political system in our country, what's the cost fee like? About how much is it for which causes?
I mentioned earlier on that Citizenship and Leadership is a center, is a social service organization. And it's our desire that every Nigerian, just like I was saying,
Don't pay anything at all? Is it free?
It's not free, but it's very minimum. The charges, when you come and spend 10 days, you don't spend less than 50, more
so
than 50,000.
how much specifically can you put? How much is it so that anyone can want to?
We categorize. The rate for the charges is categorized in groups. We have different kind of courses, right from the junior. We have the executive. We have the senior. We have the intermediate. We have the special program. And then
can you give us instances of how much is a basic course, for instance?
Like a basic course, students, those in secondary school and colleges of education, we charge 1,500 to 2,000 per day per participant. Civil servants like you and public servants, because we train is open to both private and public. So we charge 5,000 per day per participant. If you spend 10 days with us, 100,000 and 50,000. And for you to have a maximum impact of our training, you don't spend less than 10 days. The executive, particularly we charge them according to the number of days they want to stay. Some of them don't want to use our facilities, so they go to hotels. So we charge them differently. But those that use our facility, their charges are minimal.
So apart from the requirements, the fact that people are required to come by law to come and fulfill their mandate with you, are there, and the United Nations Development Program, which obviously knows about your services, are you able to engage with other non-governmental actors, perhaps secondary schools, perhaps other even private universities, to start this leadership, maybe to partner with them to fill whatever gaps you think ought to be filled by your agency in society?
Yeah, it used to be compulsory, mandatory for all the unity schools. But because there is no law imposing on them that they have to come. Some of them don't come, but some of them still come. We have our acts, amended acts now in the National Assembly. And in that act,
what
we want to make it.
For? Yeah.
We want, there are certain categories of people that we want to make this course compulsory. You cannot hold political office without passing through us. The schools also, we made it compulsory for all the secondary and tertiary institutions.
That would be very interesting if people cannot hold political office without having gone through your
Yes. By the time they come, that will expose them to know more about what they are supposed to do in office.
Do you think that is what the gap is? I mean, every time we complain about leadership, do you think that is where we are lacking?
That may help. That may help. It may not be the complete solution, but it will help to some extent.
Well, I think on this point we can say congratulations to you and your agency as you clock 70. We will definitely be looking forward to seeing the people who have passed through your institution perhaps on Thursday. And let us see what other impact you will be able to pull on the country, especially as the country is going through this very challenging period. We have to thank you for coming on our program
Thank you very much.
Mr. Jonah Bauer is the Director General, Citizenship and Leadership Training Center, and has been speaking with us here in our Abuja studios. Well, we have your comments and feedback already. Honorable Ademola Alalade, we see you. You say that Citizenship and Leadership Center has not been fully functional, that's what you have said, and visible to Nigerians as they have not been able to produce credible leaders in Nigeria. Maybe that's the amendment they're asking for now, that everybody who's going to hold elective position in this country has to go through them. Let us see how the amendment works. It says the center needs to do more in molding and educating Nigerians to produce better leaders. I hope you're taking that feedback home, sir.
Yes, I am.
Well, over to you now, gentlemen.
Well, I wonder how some of this center, if some of the leaders will actually go there, if the fee is about what, 1,500?
No, it's
basic courses.
It's on subvention.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, I've got this one from Adye, who says on call for devolution of powers. Nigeria practices federalism on pages of paper, but in reality runs a unitary country. The exclusive legislative list must be substantially downsized to ensure devolution of powers and effective management of resources and good governance.
Bolarinwa says if the present crop of leaders refuse to set aside their political interests, the current state of general insecurity in Nigeria, in our country, will consume us all.
The resolutions reached at Asaba by the southern governors, if followed strictly, will get Nigeria back on track. We're tired of hearing bad news every day. It says kudos to the governors for their gallant moves and intelligent deliberations.
Well, Andrew says the southern governors shouldn't stop at Asaba declaration. They should begin to adhere to the provisions of the constitution and support the independence of the local government system.
And Adewale Deborah says funding the military, no amount spent on the military is much. The military should ensure a good personnel welfare. Well, indeed, I think that, you know, people will be willing to expend any amount of money on our military. What people also seek as alongside that is accountability. Well, we have to thank you so much for being a part of the program this morning. Thank you for sending in your comments and being a great part of the show. We don't take it for granted. I'm Maokwe Ogunyusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makide. Please do have a good day.
I'm Chai Belin, so we'll see you next time.